guys, it is the Ace Michael Show, and I'm Ace Michaels. Happy to be with you once again. I know every time I do the show, listen, guys, every time I do the show, I say I'm happy to be with you because I am. I don't want to be anywhere else but with you. You guys are my fans. You guys are my friends. You guys kind of like the show. Sometimes you do. But anyway, I love you guys. And if you ever want to be on the show, all you've got to do is just send us a message. Say, hey, I want to be on the show. And then we'll put you on and you can speak your mind. You can say whatever's on your heart, voice your opinions, ideas, suggestions, convictions, beliefs, all that. And that's what's up. Today, my guest on the show, she's a newcomer to the show. She's never done the show before. Oh, shit. Anyway, she's never done it before, so we're going to go easy on. Kaylin Elizabeth is with us today from the Worldwide WW. Welcome to the show, Kaylin.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So we were chatting about this photo that you posted up one day, and it just created a whole stream of conversation with us guys. Everybody seemed to enjoy that photo and like that photo. You know the one I'm referring to, right?
Yeah, I think I do.
But here's the thing that I loved about it, and this is just real talk. What I loved about it was that it wasn't anything nude or naked or kind of nude or naked. It was just like a classy photograph of a classy girl. And I want to start this particular show off by saying that I think that's becoming a rare thing, to be quite honest. I think the girls being classy, like when you think of the Hepburn girl from the Breakfast and Tiffany's, you know what I'm talking about? Like that was
Hmm.
the classy style. Like even if you
Yes.
look back, or like if you watch movies from the 60s and 70s, those girls were so classy compared to the girls now. And nowadays, girls like, honey, boom, my man's and my other man's, and it's like, whoa, that is so not cool. So anyway, I know a bit about you. The audience knows not a bit about you. So maybe you can tell a little bit about your backstory. Then they'll understand why I think you're so classy. It'll all make sense then. You know?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, I totally see what you're saying. Yeah, time has changed and women are evolving, I guess I would say.
Right.
Um, I was introduced to a lot of, old classic actress women and just media and movies a little bit later than a lot of people my age. I actually didn't grow up with television. I didn't have the opportunity to submerge myself in kind of the feminine media culture until a later point. Um, uh, I studied theater arts my whole life. My passion is dancing, acting. I moved on through my 20s and I decided, I love being in service, but I want to learn how to help people. And so I decided to study mental health and social work and really kind of go out on a limb and kind of understand myself and understand other people and where they're coming from and just really open my horizons. So I traveled a bit from New Mexico. I went and lived on the East Coast for a bit, and I went to the West Coast. So I got a good range of kind of in between of America. And after some car accidents, I kind of slowed down and realized I needed to put more energy into myself. And at that time, the opportunity kind of presented itself to come back into modeling, to come back into kind of putting myself in more of a public role of speaking. And I got the opportunity to do some dancing, some runway modeling. I've been able to just network with like minds. And it's just been so amazing to kind of reach back to my artistic side.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because that has come about in my 30s. So, being that I'm, a child mentor and advocate, I was a residential counselor and I work with emotional behavioral youth and teens. And I've done a lot of work with, just struggling families, drug addicts, anything you can really name. I've kind of been there on the front line offering a lot of service. And it was just like so intense for me to be like, okay, how am I going to work this all into one? There's so many aspects of myself that I want to um, pull in and put out to the world. And I don't want to do it in a way that kind of puts me in a bubble where people would want to kind of more judge me rather than kind of listen to me and see what I'm about and get to know me.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
as I approached my modeling, I thought, well, what qualities can I really pull on? And I am from New Mexico, and so I'm kind of that cowgirl, kind of style girl. And I grew up with brothers out in the mountains, and so I kind of have that I'm as strong as the boys complex
Yeah.
going, and I've always kind of had that. So stepping back then into my feminine side, it's been like, oh, okay. And then seeing all of the development of kind of women in media was just
Mm-hmm.
like, wow. And I wanted to jump in. Of course, a role model of mine in that industry is Marilyn Monroe, and just the way that she's held herself together so elegantly, and I know there's so much backstory there,
Right.
but
Right.
something about her stuck with me, and maybe I just kind of resonated with her blonde hair and her blue eyes, and just the way that she held herself with such pride. And I just kind of thought, wow, like that is just so amazing. Um, I'm a late bloomer, and I know that a lot of women are not. And so by the time they're my age at 36, they have been everywhere, they have seen it all, they've done it all. They're like, I got this. And exactly like you said, I am in control. I know what's going on. But I'm a late bloomer a little bit. I kept my nose in the books like a bookworm.
Uh-huh.
I was also married very happily for 16 years. I married my
16
best
years.
friend. I
Oh,
was,
wow.
yes.
Wow.
And so I learned a lot. I've had the opportunity to really kind of work life with a partner and kind of learned how to grow, and instead of like just sacrifice. I mean, 16 years is a long time. It's one of
Yeah.
my longest commitments. um, I guess next would be my dog. She's 12, and I've had her for 12 years. And then her baby I've had for 10, and
Oh,
they're
wow.
my best friends. And I mean, really, my only other commitment for over a decade has been the hotel industry. So they really groomed me. Hilton groomed me well. So I didn't get all these tattoos and these piercings. And, I just kind of saw that I wanted to be able to participate in environments
Mm-hmm.
where if I made such, final choices in my presentation, particularly, that it would kind of not, it would cut off a lot of opportunities and close a lot of doors. So as I've kind of moved forward, I've really been observing a lot of the women and how they've kind of put themselves out there and create their art and connect, with everything going on in the world. And it's just so fun to watch. It's so interesting. And I really celebrate like all of women and how they're finding themselves. And I know, a lot of women prefer to find themselves in more of a risque kind of demeanor, and they kind of find their strength in that. And I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with it per se. I just think for me and for what I want to do, it's not necessarily going to keep me um, on the path that I want to do. Um, on the same sense, like I've been developing as a late bloomer my own sense of feminism and my own sexuality, and seeing the reaction as I'm turning more into a woman instead of a little girl, where people are like, "Hey, who are you? What do you have to say? What have you done? Where are you from?" And that's really exciting, And I love to tell my story and to connect with people and hear their stories, and um, and really like maintain myself as open as possible to everybody so that everybody can feel comfortable and welcome when it comes to me, so that they don't feel judged. One of my favorite sayings from a good friend is that you're always welcome here with me, the
Oh,
way that
that's
you
a good,
are.
yeah, that's a good saying.
The
That's
way you
that's
are. I
yeah,
don't want
yeah,
you to have to feel like you can't come into my presence, or because you might be judged, or or anything like that. Come into my presence and be the way that you are.
Is that a bit a blip? Yeah, tongue tied. Is that a biblical quote? Judge lest she not be judged. Is that actually from the Bible, or is
You
that
know
just
what? I think so because my
judge?
good friend and co-student in my social work education here in New Mexico, um, she's a strong Black woman, and she always says, you're part of the sisterhood." She's like, "You're smart, you're a thinker," and so she'd always say, "You are always welcome here with me the way that you are." And I thought, oh, I love that, and so
Wow,
I've always used that. No, 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 you are always welcome the way that you are.
that's nice. So there's a couple things that you said that fascinate me. So I didn't know that you were in the mental health business. So maybe you can tell us what's going on with our president, but that's another show, maybe. But if you could, no, really, seriously, what's wrong with him? But the other thing that you said, well, I think is interesting, is that you're a late bloomer, and you said that a couple times, and it made me think, when is a woman supposed to be a bloomer? And by the way, before you answer that, I'm not shaming anybody for doing their thing. Like, the internet opened up a door that I think what happened was, people, when the internet came out, people said, "Oh, you mean to tell me I can go and look at sports cars whenever I want? Well, then I can also look at porn whenever I want. Well, then I can also blah, blah, blah." And I think that was the first decade of the internet. And then now we're in the second or third, well, we're not the third decade, but let's say the second decade of the internet now, where people have realized, wait a minute, I can do porn. I can be the model. And I think that that's what's happening. So I wasn't shaming anybody for, well, hey, you doing you, whatever you doing your thing. But you are classy. You do have a sophistication. You carry yourself very well, even in your profile. Like, this is just so the audience knows, this is the first time that we've ever spoken, Kaylin and I. So we've never had a conversation about anything. Um, but there are those profiles that you see that you realize go into eternity of darkness. If you continue to go, you'll find what you're looking for. And then there are those profiles that you know that, okay, well, this is a different thing, very respectful, I need to treat this individual differently. Anyway, I want to commend you on being you, because women are going through quite a change in this. Let's say the 60s was about the rights, the 70s was about, really getting into the feminism, you know, and then the 80s was kind of, who knows what was going on there. Anyway, we bring us up to date, where now I remember watching a newscast, and there were like 7 women in the room that were all senators. And I was like, oh my God, there's a lot of women in politics. There's a lot of women in legal. There's a lot of women in health insurance. There's a lot of women working in capacities that, if you watch the show Mad Men, right? Have you ever seen
I
that show?
Yes. No, I've heard of it. I
You
have
gotta
not seen
watch
it.
one episode. You
Okay,
just gotta watch
okay.
one episode, because it's gonna throw you back so far. Like, it used to be a normal thing in an office for a boss to call you in and say, "Listen, uh, Kaylin, I need you to start wearing shorter skirts to work. I mean, this is your job, like
I have had this
you know what I'm
happen.
saying? It was normal in an office for you to walk through the office and some guy just slap you on the ass, No bad thing. He's not gonna get reprimanded for that. He's just slapping her on the ass. The world was a different place, is all I'm saying. And we've had to adjust with that. This whole thing with Black Lives Matter. We've You understand, I'm Black. So I have always dealt with racism. I just figured it was just part of being Black. It's what it was, right? But what we're seeing now is we're seeing actually proactive Black people, and I'm not talking for or against people rioting or protesting, but I'm just saying, as a Black person, I've never seen so many Black people get so proactive. Like, it's one thing to talk about it, but people are actually coming up with strategies and plans, and like, this is how we're going to change our bit. We're going to change this world. And it's like, wow, it's encouraging. Anyway, that was a long speech about you being dope. I bring it back to you.
Oh my gosh, you brought up again so many topics I could touch on that are a whole episode in itself.
Because that is what I do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're good at it. Yeah, no, everybody is, I mean, to sum it up in a beautiful way, I think everybody's really starting to kind of have a sense of their own personal power, really.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
I think, a big piece of us wants to say, oh, I'm a nobody, regardless, just as a human, like, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not really somebody. Like when it comes to politics and stuff, I would keep saying, like, well, I don't know. I don't have any pieces on the board.
Yeah,
Like it's like, okay, so I'm gonna take out all this time to really understand all this, but I don't really have any pieces on the board. And so then I start going, well, who's gonna speak on my behalf? Because
right.
I'm incompetent in this. And I think a lot of the time we as humans, I don't know, we're kind of like undermined of just this whole energy of like, I'm incompetent. There's somebody more competent. If there's a problem, we bring it to the parent, we bring it to the teacher, we bring it to the principal, instead of really like having the ability and the time for us to learn like this creative kind of problem solving and saying, wait a minute, I'm the person. This is here in front of me. What do I have inside of me? What tools do I have that I can put forward in this? And how can I trust my own instincts to move forward and out
Mhm,
of my own being? Um,
mhm.
and I think that's kind of the beautiful thing. I mean, to really, look on the whole thing is that, like you said, never have you really seen, black people really doing the hard work and standing up saying this is not right, we're going to change this, and these are all the options on the board, let's suss this out, let's see what we have to work with, what we're working with, what our time scales are and what we need to do. And I really am feeling that it's really coming out of kind of this new sense of empowerment. And I would also say that with the younger generation, those in their 20s and stuff,
Mhm.
I mean, I think they've watched their families and the adults in their lives struggle with some of the realities of being an adult in the world,
Well, and think
and they're
about
ready
this.
for a change.
Well, and think about too this particular world that we're living in. I mean, that's the first time I've seen a commercial with two guys kissing. And it didn't bother me. It was just like, oh, okay, we're doing that now. Television shows with storylines written in where, okay, the girl next door moves in and she's a lesbian. And we're not saying that to say she's a bad person, which is what they used to do. Every gay person used to be the wrong person. That was the whole point. That's what we're trying to say. If the guy next door is gay, he must be a pedophile. This must be a cautionary tale. That's why he's gay. But now you find that it's just a different world. Like you just okay, you guys are gay, and what? Are y'all paying with charge or cash or what's up? Like what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, no, totally. Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, no, I think like into that particularly, uh, some desensitization is not bad. That people live in a different way, and people experience themselves and experience others in different ways, and they should not, be put into a corner or my biggest pet peeve, silence. About what they're experiencing or what they're feeling or the questions that they might have. We don't just like come here automatically knowing ourselves, so
right.
there are a lot of questions. And what's also very scary on this note is desensitization to things that we're not quite ready to handle or wrap our head around can actually be dangerous, and it can actually like open up doors and let things in and bring us into places that we're not necessarily ready for. Maybe we don't really have the tools yet to kind of navigate that sea. So
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
for everybody, we grow up on a different line, we're taught different things. And I mean, I'm a big one for individualized everything. What is
Mhm.
right for Ace is not necessarily right for Kaylin. And we're going to go like this, and we're going to learn things in life, and it's going to be an ebb and a flow and a
Right.
tide. And I think we need to just kind of trust our gut instincts and say, does this feel appropriate? Does this really feel appropriate?
Yeah. You
Because
know what's
that's really where
funny?
the answer is.
I was just thinking, since you are we're both living on the West Coast. This used to be, you say 125 years ago, this was the Wild Wild West where we were living. We're living in what used to be literally somebody would cheat you in a game of cards, and you had the right by law to shoot them. You had the right by law to get you a posse together and go to someone's house, grab them up out of their house, and hang them. And all you had to say was, Leroy stole my horse. What? He stole your horse? Come on, let's go get him. You
Let's
know,
go.
and no one had to have the burden of proof on anything. It just, all you just had to say was, that's what it was.
Yeah.
So we've come a long way, and you think that now, we find, sure, there are things we get hot about. We don't want to wear a damn mask. We don't want to wear a damn mask. Okay, once you get over that, now what? There's actual issues to be concerned about that we can talk about. Just get over that first initial wave of it. But people themselves are evolving into more of a collective. For example, again, I go back to me being black, and I just use that because it's obvious. And a lot of people don't know the experience of being black, just like I don't know the experience of being Asian. So if someone were to, a friend of mine were Asian and they were like, yo, you got to know that this is what it feels like to be Asian, I kind of check that out. So anyway, my point was, about all of the changes that people are going through. Well, one of the things is that you're Caucasian, clearly Caucasian. I'm clearly black. But nowadays, we have children and grandchildren that aren't so categorical. And so I kind of felt like as soon as I started seeing the riots and the protests starting, it wasn't going to go the way the old school electorate thought it was going to go, because now these people we're all Latin, we're all black, we're all like, it's just not going to happen. You're not going to get me to hate my granddaughter because she's part black. Maybe you could have 100 years ago, because again, we were living in the wild, wild west where it was just, you're a Chinaman or you're black or you're white. That's it. I don't know nothing about
Bam, bam,
no
bam.
Armenian. What the hell is an Armenian, right? I'm gonna shoot you just because you said you an Armenian. But nowadays, and I mean no disrespect to Armenians, but nowadays we are living in the beginning of the futuristic society that could potentially become the utopian society if we wanted to. If we really want to let go of some of those things, we have a tremendous potential. It's up to us. Would you agree?
I do agree. And it's, again, I think this time is really different for everybody, and the answers are different for everybody. For myself, I was very blessed to grow up in New Mexico, surrounded by a beautiful culture of Hispanics and natives, and oh my gosh, I get everything here. Artists, intense business people. So I've really been able to get a wide range.
Hmm.
My sister-in-law is actually Asian. I just started working for a company where the gentleman is, I believe, Armenian or across seas from that area. Um, my grandmother, now she studied for a long time as an archaeologist. She was just so interested with the Mexican culture, and she said, I got to go there. I have to go learn
Hmm.
about this. So she
Hmm.
went and she learned, and that brought her to New Mexico, where she delved deep into the native cultures, the Pueblos.
Hmm.
She developed very strong relationships, did a lot of volunteer work, and really, as a white woman from Connecticut, who her mom said, You're going to the West? She said, Yeah, come visit me, mom. And in the 90s, my great grandmother said, Oh, no, I am not going to the West. I do not want to be attacked by any Indians. And
Isn't
she
that
thought my
crazy?
grandma was
Right,
crazy. She was
right.
a pioneering woman. She was the first woman to graduate from an all boys school up in Connecticut. And then, she just like totally took an alternative path. And she ended up writing a few books about the Pueblos here. And she actually wrote one that I don't know. I think it's just so relevant. It's the book that she wrote right before she passed. a few years back, and it's crazy. I kind of feel like I helped her write the book because she was coming up on 90, and technology has taken so much of a step. I mean, we watch these kids play video games and stuff, and we're like, how did you do that? I'm watching these kids on social media, and I'm like, I'm still over here at 36. So, okay, so I'm gonna do a TikTok. And I'm like, okay, what button do I push now? And so my grandma was like that. She was like, I just cannot finish this book. I can't. She'd switch from a typewriter to a computer. And she was like, it was a total, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is a big thing because this is moving so fast that I will be dated like my grandmother if I
Mhm.
don't keep up on so much stuff.
Well, just
So,
look
I
at
mean,
the
she
development.
really
Yeah.
pushed, and it taught me that I gotta push, I gotta learn, I gotta think
Mhm.
outside of the box.
Well, just look at the developments in just 15 years. Okay, just 15 years. We used to use a fax machine. We used to use a pager. We used to, before we had a pager, we had another system that was the ideal system. We used to have only a couple of phones in our house, and we would get a long distance phone call and pay through the nose to talk to somebody for 15 minutes because it
My
was.
dad was like, 3 minutes, 3 minutes. This is for information only. So I didn't get to do that. Hey.
Right, exactly. I mean, you could even go back even further. I mean, 200 years ago, right? You might have been burned at the stake for having blue eyes.
uh, before the blue eyes, the mouth. Because
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
look and I have a lot of questions and I want to ask the hard questions. And
You'd have been a witch, just like that. She's a witch.
just
So
like that.
yeah, and take her to trial. Never mind,
Yeah.
don't take her to trial. Just burn her. She's a witch. How do
Yeah.
you
Or
know?
at the very
That's
least,
different.
just shun her. Just shun
Yeah,
her. Because here's the reality. How well are you going to live if you're shunned?
not very.
Humans need each other,
I'm
and it don't
shutting
matter
right now.
what color your skin is. We need each other. We all got thumbs, we all got brains and eyes, and we all
Right.
are in this together.
And I want to make sure that people get that, the show today turned out not to be about race. Everybody's talking about race right now. But
It's up.
I've said this on other shows, and I really stand by this. Okay, so let's say we talk about race. Let's say we get over this whole thing. Black lives do matter. All lives do matter. Okay, now we got to talk about sexism. Because you know what? If you think race is a problem, homie, women still don't make the same amount of money as men to do the same job. Women still can't vote in some states. Like, it's crazy. Like, we are one collective animal, humans, okay? But we have divided ourselves in so many different ways that we could say, oh, well, he's Jewish. And he's a human. You're a human. Oh, well, he's 6 foot tall. And what? Why these problems? Why all of these things to get in the middle of us just getting to know each other and relating? It seems almost like it's like a
No,
satanic
you're
plan.
definitely right. Yeah, it
You
is.
know?
It is. And I actually want to touch on something that you've kind of touched on now twice that I haven't really. And that is the women moving into becoming more owners of their sex work and putting themselves out there.
Mhm.
Now, going back in history and looking at this, I mean, throughout time, men have actually played a really big role in, putting women out there in this way and building themselves up and out there and to do this.
But so
We
much
got
has
the
changed.
pimp, we've got,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, this is the way it is. So now jumping forward, here we are in 2020. We've got some big companies that have reigned supreme in the porn industry for quite a while, and
Oh,
they've done the marketing, they've got the clientele, they've groomed the women, for this industry.
yeah.
They've created, a really beautiful thing if you think about it. It's a space of self-expression. The interesting thing is that and this is where I'm going to tie everything in together. The
Okay.
real question is about systemic oppression, because these women and these men are paying this company to get their personal need met.
Right.
And that's cool, But at what point do we let people have ownership of themselves? And at what point do we actually let them build on their own and not have
Okay.
to pay out to somebody to maintain who they are? Let's let people step into their essence, put themselves out there, and and then get back reaping the rewards for themselves so that they can share it with the world the way they want. And
Okay.
I find that women in that industry are pushing that forward and saying, hey, you know what? I am competent and comfortable enough in this industry
Absolutely.
to represent myself. I don't need an agent. I don't need a company worth billions of dollars to get me to sign my life away just to make sure that I can kind of play in this narrow alley.
And
So,
in a lot of cases,
yeah,
in a
yeah,
lot of those cases, those women are actually producing that content themselves nowadays. I just want to throw one thing before we run out of time.
definitely.
So, in a weekend, a few weekends ago, I had the opportunity to watch the movie Grease. You've seen
Yes,
Grease, right?
yes. Like
Uh,
the
I
old,
got
like classic.
chills
Oh,
when they're
yes,
flying. Anyway,
yes.
so Grease, and then in the same weekend, I watched. I think it was Jersey Boys. There was a lot. I watched a lot of 50s, 60s themed shows.
Okay.
In both movies that I watched, there was same scene where a guy drives his convertible with a girl to a certain place, turns off the car, and is expecting sex. Now, can you imagine? Now, you know that was what it was, right? We all know that's what it was. But can you imagine today if a guy took you out on a date and drove his car, stopped his car, and was like, yo, we out of gas, Kaylin. What you about to do, player? You know what I'm saying? Women today would never, never, ain't gonna happen, bro. Ain't unless, of course, she wanted to. But that was a real thing. That was like, look, you're a woman.
Well, I
You're
am
expected to get
surprised.
out.
Quickly, Grease is my favorite ever. And so, yes, I know this scene well. And yes, this comes up all the time. And all I can say is that, yes, I have been in these situations multiple times. And it always surprises me because we are in 2020. And that's the last thing I expect. But I'll tell you, I did not have a car for a few months. And I was surprised. And here's the thing, I am lucky, I am a strong female and I do have a sense of, myself and where and how I want to, conduct myself.
Right.
But it's really surprising. And it's so funny that you bring this up. A good friend of mine, we're talking about me launching YouTube, just kind of talking about I have to bring it all the way back down and just say that I don't think guys really understand all the time how to create that opening with a woman. And I think that, there's a lot of communication skills that need to happen. Now, there is the aspect of there being the entitlement.
Yeah.
And I think that comes down to a class issue. I feel very comfortable hanging out with my poor friend men. They don't expect anything from me. They respect my presence. They just enjoy good conversation. I'm a funny person. They treat me with the utmost respect. When I do find that when I'm with a higher class, richer kind of
A
um,
wealthier person.
understanding of life, yeah, um, that there's a lot more entitlement and expectation. And then if I don't show them, the acceptance, then they really immediately see it as rejection.
Mm,
And so I get a little bit nervous. I've just kind of noticed that, and I thought, gosh, this is such an interesting thing. When I was an Uber driver as a female, many people are asking, "Do you feel safe? Who are your riders? What do and that's so crazy. I worked all over the town. I worked down in the big city in Albuquerque, driving around as my own self as a small white female,
mm,
working, in a state where the majority is colored. I did not really feel unsafe ever, unless I was picking somebody up, a man, middle ages, had a few drinks, maybe looking to chat with a girl, just needing some connection, which
mm.
there's nothing wrong with that. I even picked up a guy, brought him over to the strip club. He was bawling. He's like, I don't know what to do. I just need like female connection. I was like, boy, I'm not judging. I'm like, go do you. I get it. I
Right.
mean, that's wrong. He said, but it just makes me feel so bad that I'm like endorsing this. And I'm like, dude, I get it. But it made me realize, men need support. Someone got to hold their hand and say, like, okay, look, um, let me give you a better way to get these needs met. So that way, females are not put off and feeling that they're being approached disrespectfully.
Hmm.
And that way, a man isn't feeling rejected to the point where he starts to feel entitled in a bad way, which is when where we start to see men taking advantage of women. I think we need to have more of a conversation about this, about how
Do
men
you
are courting women.
do you think that, and we should, I agree, we should do a different show on that for sure. Uh, do you think that it stems from how you present yourself, which would bring our conversation around full circle? Because if you are classy, ladies, okay, so let me take you to a quote. A friend of mine, she has a site, and I guess the guys go. I haven't been to her site because she's my friend. It would be awkward for me to look at her site. So I know that there's something going on the site, right? So she
Okay.
made a post the other day, and she said, "Listen, just because I am nude on my site, that doesn't mean that I want to be nude for you. You're not my guy. You're not my husband. We have nothing like that. If you want to see me nude, pay money and go to my site and see it. But don't think that I'm going to be doing you any favors by being nude outside of a professional situation where I'm hired or I sell you my pictures." And I thought, wow, well, yeah. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, if I'm a photographer, don't think that I'm going to be shooting your weddings and your engagement parties and your bat mitzvahs and shit for free. Like, I'm a photographer. That's what I do.
It's
If you
business.
want me to take a picture and you want to pay me, I'm there. But aside from that, you can look at some of the work I've done, but don't think that I'm supposed to do this for free. But I think that why we need to continue having this conversation another time is because somehow during the course of history, men decided that women were entitled to give out. And if they didn't give out, then they were a bitch or they were a problem because they're not going along with the plan. Well, who made that plan?
Oh my gosh. And that's why I feel like I'm a late bloomer. Because I've been sitting here scratching my head. I'm like, wait a minute, so who made this plan? I'm like looking for somebody to point my finger at. Yeah. Who made this plan? Like, where, and can I get the blueprint? Because I'm still confused.
Well, you know. Okay, so here's the thing. On our show, we always run out of time, and we're running out of time now. So we got to do this conversation another time. I'd like to turn it into a whole series of shows, actually, because it is something that is the elephant in every room. Um, I'm going to say this. I've met a wonderful lady that I just adore. She's good fun. We have a great time, right? But it's awkward because every conversation in this beginning time since we've known each other, I try to avoid saying certain things that might make her feel like, am I being too forward? Am I trying to make us boyfriend girlfriend? We never said we're boyfriend girlfriend. We just said we're going to eat some barbecue. So what makes you think that I'm down? Don't start. Because for the there's a word I'm looking for. Your expectation. I'm going to use that word. There's a better word, but you and I are having a conversation right now. Are we leading to something? No, we're just talking. And if you were a guy and we were talking, we wouldn't think anything about it. But when a male and a female get together, there's this expectation from a male side, usually. I'm a guy, I know what guys think. We just have this thing like, okay, she must want it. Otherwise,
Yeah.
she wouldn't. I mean, why would she still be? Yeah, she's down. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what's up.
And
Because
it's
I'm
hard
super
for the
duper.
nice girl because I want to be everybody's friend. Like I said, I want to know
Right,
everybody. It's hard for the nice girl. Um, and so, I'm kind of like confused a lot of time. I'm sorry, what?
right.
Because a lot of the time guys are not upfront about what they're thinking. They want to beat around the bush a little bit. And
Do.
I'm one of those people, and it does not, when you look at me or you see my funny side, you don't necessarily get that about me, but I'm straight to the point. Like, I got so many minutes in the day. I
Right.
got all this time. All these guys are like, hey, let's hang out. Hang out? Are you kidding? I'm already behind. I'm like, I'm supposed to be in 3 meetings right now, you know? And then they think, gosh, everybody all the time, oh gosh, what's taking Caitlin so long? She must just be kicking ass, you know? And I'm over here getting all this stuff done. And I get there, I'm like, all right, let's do this. And they're like, oh, you're moving too fast. But slow down, slow down, slow down. I'm like, you were telling me to hurry. I've been hurrying.
Right,
Move, you know. So I
right.
think we all have like a different level of like that, you know, we kind of like move at, and we kind of have to like respect that. So that's something that I'm learning is like, oh my gosh, not everybody moves as fast as me. Which then, you know, a lot of the time, like, you know, I guess I have a big ego in that I guess maybe the way my mom raised me kind of contributed to it. Um, you know, I don't really see myself separate from anything around me. And that's created a lot of problems. And I know that us as a human race, we're working towards connection. And that's a lot of kind of, you know, all the what's the opportunity in the fear around coronavirus, around our racial tension, around what we haven't even been able to touch on, but you know, just our financial stability as a nation, as even states, as community functioning and as independent families. Um, there's just so much going on, but I think that there's so much opportunity in this, and you know, if we can kind of e- start looking at ourselves all in a much bigger and different way, we're
Mm.
on the brink. Like we're on the
Yeah,
brink of
I
something
would
that's going
agree.
to meet everybody's needs. And we're it's just one of my favorite quotes, and I don't remember exactly or and I don't know where it came from, but it's like the world needs your authentic contribution. And that's what we need from everybody. Don't get on a boat where somebody's telling you to be some way. If you're a girl, if guys tell you, "Oh, you need to be like this," or "You need to act like this,"
Mhm,
no,
mhm.
do what feels right for you,
Right,
and that's intimidating.
right. And on that note,
Challenge.
how do we find you on social media? We want to pleasantly stalk. We want to fan. We want to follow. What do we need to
I
do?
love that. Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. So you can always just find me at Kaylin Elizabeth on Facebook. I'm not at my 5,000 friends yet, so I have that. Um, not too active, but you know, it's kind of where I get the news and kind of sense the weather. You know, I'm like, what's going on out there today
Yes,
on social
yes,
media?
yes.
Um, you can also find me on Instagram. I'm at Down to Earth Gangster Chica. Um, and pretty random there.
Down to
I have
earth.
a few
Thank
projects
you.
in the works though that I'm going to be coming out on. I'm going to be starting a YouTube channel, so that way I can link up with more like minds like yourself, just
Creative
bringing up
minds think
excellent
alike. Yes,
topics,
yes,
connecting with people, bringing in great people, getting the conversation started.
yes.
So pretty soon, everybody will be able to find me on YouTube, and that I'll plaster that everywhere.
Nice.
Um, I'm going to start an Instagram page for my dogs. I've had 12 years of amazing memories with them. So I just think they deserve their own page. So I'm going to be taking a little bit of time over the rest of this month to get that all set up and get a bunch of pictures and photos out there and just kind of be able to celebrate the joy that they brought my life thus far. And they're going to live forever. So I hope to have 12 more years of amazing photos. So I figure I better get started now.
You got
But otherwise, yeah, like people are welcome to shoot me questions if I brought up anything that people want to know more about. I'm just open on all surfaces. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm there. Shoot me a message. You can also find me through you, Ace. So
it.
I'm here. Thank you.
Hey guys, it's the Ace Michael Show. Caitlin Elizabeth is my guest, and it's Kaylin, not Caitlin, not Kate Lynn, but Kaylin Elizabeth is my guest. Cailyn, right? That is.
Unless you're Latino and it's easier for you to call me Kelina.
Ooh,
A lot of people call me Kelina, especially in the restaurant industry.
mm,
Mm.
Kaylina. Hmm. All right, man. It's the Ace Michael Show. You know what I say at the end? Live the life you love the life you live. Thank you.